Have you ever felt like you're just a little bit weird? Like the way you think or act doesn't quite line up with everyone else? Well, we're about to dive into some common habits that might feel odd, but are actually, according to psychology, signs of a superactive, intelligent mind at work. You know that feeling, right? You're in a social situation and you just feel a little out of sync. It's almost like you're tuned into a completely different radio frequency than the rest of the room. Well, what if I told you that those little quirks, the very things that you might be a little self-conscious about, yeah, what if they're not flaws at all, but they're really just proof that you've got a powerful engine running under the hood? Let's break it down. Okay, first up, let's talk about those awkward social moments. For a lot of smart people, trying to navigate social cues can feel like trying to solve a puzzle when you know half the pieces are missing. Oh, this one's a classic. We've all been there. You meet someone, you shake their hand, and literally 5 seconds later, poof, their name is just gone. And people can take it really personally, right? They think you're rude or you just weren't listening. But here's what's really going on inside your head. Your brain has a limited amount of bandwidth. When you meet somebody, it's processing this huge flood of complex data, their facial expressions, their body language, the whole vibe of the conversation. And as you can see, a name, it's just one tiny little piece of information fighting for attention against all that other rich data. So the real story here isn't that you're bad with names. It's that your brain is optimized for the deep stuff, for substance. In fact, research shows that people who forget names but remember all the juicy details of a conversation often have higher fluid intelligence. That's the ability to solve brand new problems. You remember their ideas, their stories, not just the simple label they came with. All right, here's another one. That feeling of absolute dread when someone corners you to talk about the weather. You might come off as cold or awkward just because you cannot stand that shallow back and forth. And this explains exactly why. Smart brains are basically information-seeking missiles, and small talk is all social glue with zero data. It is, like it says, the verbal equivalent of empty calories. You know, a study from the University of Arizona even found that people are happiest when they have more substantive, meaningful conversations. That's exactly what your brain is craving. So I want you to think about it this way. Your hatred of small talk isn't some kind of social failure. It's actually a highly effective filter. It weeds out all the superficial connections, helping you build fewer but way more meaningful relationships. And that preference for deeper connection, well, it leads us perfectly into our next point, the power of being alone, and why, for so many intelligent people, solitude is a choice, not a punishment. Have you ever been at a huge, noisy party and just felt completely drained? Like everyone else seems to be getting energized by the crowd, but you feel like your battery is just dying fast. So why is that? Well, a massive study gives us a pretty big clue. Researchers tracked 15,000 people to figure out the relationship between intelligence, hanging out with friends, and just general happiness. And the results were, well, they were fascinating. As this chart shows, for most people, more social interaction meant they were happier. But for the highly intelligent folks, the effect was the exact opposite. More socializing often meant less happiness. And the reason is actually pretty simple. Your brain is already its own party. It's constantly analyzing, creating, solving problems. So for you, socializing isn't fuel. It's just noise that interrupts that really important internal work. You're not antisocial. You are just fiercely protective of your focus and your mental energy. Okay, this next one is really interesting. Humor. Specifically, let's talk about dark humor and why appreciating it is kind of like a mental stress test for your brain. So, if you're someone who loves a good dark joke, your brain is doing some serious heavy lifting in milliseconds. Researchers found that to get a dark joke, you have to perform this 3-step mental gymnastics. You have to process the taboo topic, find the clever, unexpected twist, and then you have to manage your own emotional response to actually see the humor in it. And the payoff for that mental agility is huge. It's a sign of some serious emotional resilience. It means you have this incredible ability to reframe really difficult situations, to use humor to cope with stress, and it's even linked to having lower levels of aggression. It's a really sophisticated way of dealing with the world. Okay, let's switch gears from social stuff to more intellectual habits. This next one is something that our culture, for some reason, often sees as a weakness. Changing your mind,
People might call you inconsistent, wishy-washy, or indecisive, but the reality is being able to update your beliefs when you get new evidence, that is the absolute definition of intellectual honesty.
So, here's the key takeaway. Intelligent people tend to treat their opinions like hypotheses, to be tested, not identities to be defended. When better data comes along, they adjust. See, most people get their ego tangled up in being right, but a flexible mind separates ego from ideas, which lets them change course faster and ultimately be wrong a lot less often.
And finally, let's look at a couple of habits that might seem incredibly annoying on the surface, but are actually tied directly to the engine of all innovation. First, ever get a song stuck in your head? You know, an earworm? It can be maddening, right? But what's happening is your auditory cortex is so active that it just keeps processing those musical patterns, even after the song is over. The hidden advantage here is amazing. That same brain wiring makes you a fantastic pattern recognition machine, whether you're looking at data, language, or complex systems. And that leads us to one last crucial trait: constantly questioning things. Now, this might annoy people who just want to follow the rules, but asking why is the fundamental driver of all human progress. Every single major breakthrough in history started with someone who looked at the way things were and simply refused to accept it. So let's recap this whole thing. Forgetting names, hating small talk, needing to be alone, loving dark humor, changing your mind, getting songs stuck in your head, and questioning everything. These aren't weird flaws. They're your secret superpowers. And I want you to always remember this. The very thing that society sometimes points to as a flaw or an awkward quirk, well, that could be the clearest sign of your intelligence hard at work. So take a second and think about your own habits. Look back at that list we just covered. Which one of those so-called weird habits is actually your greatest, most powerful secret superpower?